So change. So the countdown's going to go. Hey guys, welcome to Coaching with Chris. Sorry about the little delay there. Good thing I'm in mortgages and not technology, because that is not my gift. I got to tell you, I'm super excited. I woke up this morning and just couldn't wait to be able to bring Harish in for ARIVE. I got to say that it has just been a huge honor to be able to meet Harish, to be able to understand this company, to be able to understand the vision. And I remember when I was started off as a broker in 2000, and we didn't have anything like this. It was a complex system. It was hard. It was not easy to be a broker. And what Harish has done for this sector is just short of amazing. And I can't wait to hear what's next. So everybody want to bring in Harish. And I think he's to jump in. There you are. How are you?
Good, good. Hi, good morning, Chris. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect.
All right. Yeah. So super excited to be here with you today. So
yeah, you told me to give you a list of questions, but I thought spontaneous would be fun, but we'll see. We'll see how we do. Look, give us a little bit of background. Like, how did you get into technology? And then more importantly, like, how did you end up in the LOS mortgage world?
yeah, no, it's a great question. There is a saying that nobody goes to school to go into mortgages. You somehow land into that by some way, by accident. So my story is not very different from how I got into mortgages. In terms of technology, I was born and raised in Delhi, India, in a pretty modest family. I studied really hard in my senior year and went to Indian Institute of Technology. That's my undergrad school back there. So that's how I learned software development, engineering. When I graduated, I did software development for 7-8 years. I wrote complex distributed software back in India then, and I believe around 2007, I got a chance to come here to United States, the land of opportunity. I jumped on that, and I came on a work visa back then. Worked for 4 or 5 years at a large corporation here in Bay Area. Got my green card, and the day I got my green card, I quit my job. I wanted to build something big, unique. At that time, I had no idea, no bank balance to be proud of. I had no team. I was just on my own, but I had this desire to make an impact. So this was again 2011. At that time, I started my first company, Wisney. So it was providing software consulting, advisory services to financial services and institutes which are highly regulated. That was my specialty. I used to work at a company where we built software on boring ideas, compliance, things like more, regulated industry. So that's what I've been doing for a long time. And I was moderately successful. 4 or 5 years I did that, but I was not again able to scale the company. And about 2013, 14, I went to Berkeley here in Bay Area, University of California, for a course in statistical mining. That's where I met a lot of mortgage people, and that was my true introduction to how underwriting works, how capital markets work, how do you price a loan, how do you qualify a borrower. I made many friends, and technology at that time was in stone ages. That's how we joke. People were emailing documents around. Everything was so manual, paper based. This was back in 2013, 14, and that's when I thought this is a good area to invest my time in, and that's when I started my second company, which was building pricing optimization software for banks and lenders. So I did this for 4 or 5 years. We built a pricing engine. We were competing with big behemoths at that time. It could run pricing models in near real time and large data. 2018, again, I was not able to scale the company. I was not able to acquire customers, build out a sales team, given we were selling to enterprises. That was back in 2018. 2019, I was introduced to ARIVE. At that point in time, as I mentioned, money was tight. We were not very successful. I just used to crash into conferences. I used to become a loan officer and attend conferences on my own. When you're building companies, you do everything you can. You hustle to get it going. That's how it works. So 2019, I got introduced to ARIVE. I just fell in love with the concept, having one system where you can put all the brokers, originators, lenders, other participants. So streamlining the entire process, that was a big idea. So I was involved, I was engaged. Towards end of 2020, I acquired the company. That was back then. We had about 400-500 users. Arrive was a great idea at that time, but it did not execute well. The software that was developed at that time by many parties, did not live up to expectations. So the vision was good, but the execution was not up to mark. So we had a few users. I had about 25 employees at that time. I remember when we went ahead and acquired the company, but I had big ambitions. And from that point on, I feel I'm fortunate enough to work with all these brokers, my community, really working with them to grow the system, build the platform. I truly believe we don't have a system like this out there, like you mentioned, Chris, which gives brokers like a one-stop shop where they can manage their process, their prospects, their origination cycles. So it's a big opportunity. 2 years in the making. We have more than 15,000 users right now. So we feel very fortunate. Lender partners like yourself. But yeah, I'm pretty excited, where it has come along in almost 2 years. Most of the growth has been through word of mouth, brokers telling other brokers, have you heard of this system? And have you heard of this company? Give it a try. So we are very excited. We have built this from grounds up. It has been in works for 10, 11 years. I've been trying to do this, but they say third time is a charm. That's what we joke. My third time has finally been, modestly successful, as we say. So yeah, but that's my background.
I love your story. So how many employees do you have today?
About 105 by the end of this month. So yeah, it's still a small company. We have grown organically by intention. We have not taken any outside money. That way, we have full control on our destiny. Our customers love us. We are a profitable company, and we are very bullish on the future. So.
Where is, like, for you, when you look at, I think all of us in the mortgage industry, we create these goals of how many leads we need and how many closings we need, and we forecast the total production for the year. How do you look at that in your realm? Is it by users, or is it, what are some of your goals for this year or even in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I ask myself every day, what is it that we are trying to achieve, this year, 5 years, 3 years, all these strategic plans, tactical plans. So we have some ideas like how many, brokers we will get to, and, lenders or banks we get to, but I've taken a little, fundamentally a different approach. If we go back and look at, before we set our goals and targets, so we are a software company. We produce software for brokers and lenders like yourself, right? What is the fundamental problem that would prevent us from scaling or going big? We think this will be the next Google or next Amazon. The opportunity is that big. So before we set our goals, I'm just trying to kind of talk to myself, okay, what are the major challenges? So I think what at least I see is mortgage industry, first of all, is highly complex. It's highly regulated. You have to be compliant. And what has happened, Chris, over last, if you look at 10, 20 years, is you have this entrenched players in origination space. They have kind of the stranglehold on the whole process, if you will. And the reason I bring up is, we can come up with lofty goals. I'll get to, 20,000 users and so many lenders, but we have to look at what environments do we operate in. So we are working in a highly regulated, constrained environment. And you have these legacy players who have completely monopolized, if you will, the origination process. And I think the way we see this is, ARIVE comes and brings that liberation. We take a totally different approach. We build a system. We will say we'll put all parties together. We have no legacy. We do not depend on these systems and platforms. And then the question is it really feasible? Is it doable? Why has not anyone else done it? All these questions come up. And as I said, like, since most of the lenders are kind of, captured by these large players, it has been really difficult to build a system which is meant for independent originators. Now going back to your original question, so you say, okay, let's focus on a market which is not captive. So if you go after mortgage brokers, smaller companies who want to succeed, who are entrepreneurs, we don't have to bother about Ice Mortgage or Black Knight or some of these bigger players. Now, and then you go back and say there are like 60, 70,000 brokers out there, and the channel is growing. There's a huge momentum from retail to wholesale, and that's kind of why we are also growing, because the broker audience is growing. So way we see this is from 500 we went to 15,000 in 2 years. That's a phenomenal growth. We never forecasted that. We never I never made a plan. We had to redo our infrastructure maybe 10 times to scale up. So I think the way we see this is, okay, how do we get to 100% of this population? How do I get to all 60, 70,000 brokers in next 2-3 years? That's kind of the goal we have set for ourselves. Like 100% of wholesale origination should pass through ARIVE. And then we understand lenders, it is complex. You have to join a new system and train your staff. So over time, we want to be the one-stop shop, if you will, and all. Let's say it's 2 trillion, if I hear correctly, the origination volume 1.6 to 2 trillion.
Yep.
So we want to be 100% on the wholesale side. So all 600-700 billion loans which get originated in next whatever few years should pass. That's our goal. And then we go back and see, is it doable based on the statistics? Absolutely. We have grown so big, so fast. And now we are building a sales team. We have a big support team. I'm fortunate to work with all these amazing employees who are equally excited. We have this once in a lifetime opportunity where we can really change how you do loans in a truly unique manner. But I hope I did answer your question. It's kind of a looking at fundamentals, what problems we are facing in terms of growth, and then going back and sizing the channel, and then saying, okay, how do we get 100% of this?
Harish, I love your passion, your enthusiasm. Just you glow when you talk about this. And I'll turn around at some event and boom, there you are. But and that's just what I love about you, is that you're so passionate about this, but also you want to give all of us, a really good experience. And I hear you saying, 20,000 users is the goal, and 100% of the market share, and that's just amazing. And what a big challenge, obviously. But, having everything into one, was that something that when you were developing and redoing ARIVE, was that like a challenge? Was that one of the main goals, that, hey, look, I want to create an all-in-one type software? Or like, what was some of the goals in the very beginning when you were creating ARIVE?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question. And you have to be in the footsteps of your customers. So my customers primarily are originators, or mortgage brokers. They're steering a ship. As I mentioned, mortgage is a complex process. Everybody is stressed out, and you're trying to get things done, and documents are missing, and there is a slippage and all that. So if you and they're working with agents on one side, borrowers on other side, lenders on, so they're sandwiched between all these players. So I think customer experience becomes absolutely essential, and that's where, like you said, originators are not excited about using technology, clicking 20 screens and pricing out loans in one system and exporting it and manually keying it in a different system, or going to a lender portal. They're trying to give their borrowers, their agents, a simplified experience. They're trying to close a loan. They have a deal in the pipeline. Their goal is, how can I get this closed and move on to the next, or how can I nurture my prospect? So thinking from originator perspective, that was the idea. So we said, how do we simplify the process? They are not in the system to enter 25, 30 data fields. And we get compliance is important. And that's what all these legacy players are. They create so many hoops and obstacles, and they're built on, installed and desktop technology. You have to, install them. So we said, okay, people are mobile. Originators are mobile. How do we give them these tools where they are on their mobile phones, on their iPads, on their laptops? So building systems which are simple, with least amount of clicks, and still get the job done. It is a pretty hard problem, but that's how we took the challenge. Okay, we want to build a system where when the originator is in the system, they can price a loan, qualify a deal, structure it, qualify it, run AUS, send pre-approval letters, collect documents. So how do you put this in a manner which is highly intuitive, simple, easy, without doing a lot of trainings. One thing we pride ourselves is we do have training classes, but brokers are up and running within days. We add our customers, and within a couple of days, they are actually doing live loans, real loans, which is phenomenal, which is very exciting. So yeah, simplification, aggregation, and thinking like our customers think, like, how do I get this deal done without require me to, key data into 20 system and take 5 hours? That's kind of how we have approached this.
Yeah, I told a customer the other day, we were talking about LOSs, and I said, I think ARIVE is a lot like an Apple phone. Just get the phone, start looking at it, and boom, in a very short period of time, you'll know how to do everything on that dang phone. And I feel like your system is that easy as well. It's user friendly. It supports the originator, and it gives them all the tools. It's like you're giving an originator a full tool set with every tool that they would ever need to be successful in the mortgage business. And all they got to do is go get it. And it's cost effective. I mean, was that your theory in the very beginning of making it priced right for the originator so that their cost to originate was lower? Or did that just happen?
No, it's a good question. As I said, we had this small population of users, 400-500, when we launched late 2020, and I was very close with them, and they were very passionate about ARIVE, and I think the general feeling from the community was they're using certain tools today, and they use a lot of them. They're paying $50 for this tool, 40 for this, 70 for this, 80 for this. Whatever price points we come up with, it has to sound in similar ballpark. We cannot create a fantastic system and price it so high. At that time, markets were good. 2021, people were doing a lot of loans. But even in those times, the goal was, how do we give a system, let's say the competition sits at $40 a user. If you make it 45, people would still take it. But if you go to 100, there'll be a lot of reluctance. So that was, again, that came from the community. That's what I asked them pretty, honestly, like, tell me, what would you be willing to pay for a software like this? He said, look, I'm paying X for system one. If it is in the same ballpark, I'll go and accept this if you give me a very high price. So it didn't just happen. It was through a lot of, I would say, discussions and community feedback. So another thing my users told me early on is, look, I have these loan officers who are producing loans. We don't mind paying for a software, but I have these processors and assistants and other staff like administrators. They're not generating income. Can you do something about them from a price perspective? So we came up with this idea. Okay, if you're a producing user, if you're a loan originator, you pay X. If you're a support user, you pay half of X, or 1/3 of X. That model is very unique, and community loves it. From a cost perspective, it is a no-brainer. First of all, you're getting so many tools in one bucket, and you're only paying for users who are actually generating income. So that model has really, I believe, one of the foundational reasons why we have been so successful. So
yeah, I know you've added a lot of tools, contract processing being one. How did that come about, to where you had that vision to be able to have that integrated with inside your software? How I know it probably came from a user or an idea, but how'd that idea come about?
No, so I think, like you said, we once you have adoption, and this is what we have learned, once you get to user base, feedback flows in, and then the question becomes how close you are to your customers. Are you really listening to their feedback? Most of these large companies, which I mentioned earlier, like they're entrenched player, they have pretty large user base, thousands of lenders, and the challenge we see is they're not close to the feedback. They're not really listening to what an originator wants, and then delivering that feedback in a reasonable time. Customers can give you feedback, but if you take 5 years, 10 years to do it, that's not valuable from a customer viewpoint. So to your point, when we are looking at our brokers and users, we heard loud and clear from them that they need options when it comes to processing. Loan processing is like a quarterback, or that's the fundamental backbone of how documents get structured, loan gets structured. So they were looking for options, if you will, and we heard from them, like, I have my in-house processors, but for hard loans, I want to go outside. Some of the smaller loan officers said, I want to just focus on origination, sales. So it was about giving options, to your point. And then we said, okay, we have the technology infrastructure. We support processors which are in-house processor. Bringing them out in a way they can work across multiple brokers was not a fundamental change to what we were doing. So it was a matter of how quickly, like you said, and then even your company does contract processing. You guys came up like, can you give me a tool so it makes my life easy? So that's kind of how this came up. Like we heard from our users.
Yeah.
There was a need and they wanted options, and we kind of did it for them. So
that next step is probably after processing is it is underwriting. And where do you see ARIVE and in uploading the underwriting conditions and working with investors to be able to make it easier so that they can see everything in and uploading into your system? I know you're always reinventing and creating, and where do you see in that next step of underwriting? What's next for underwriting in ARIVE?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question. So as I mentioned, we went with originator first mindset. So, and we have done a decent job in getting the tools brokers need to in one space. Now the next question was, how do we give our lender partners like more efficiencies? To your point, and you've asked this me so many times. When can I use your system? So we get this question a lot. So
out of jealousy, I'm jealous.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that, and this is what I mentioned. This is the feedback we are getting directly from our key clients, early customers, and you are the reason why we are successful. That's how we see this. Like, you've put your faith in us and joined our platform. So the way we see this is, our first goal, I would say last year was, let's build a TPO portal, and then we are going to build integrations, like deeper integrations into different lenders who have different LOS. And what we realized was these LOS systems were so complicated, and every lender had their own process, their own steps. So trying to kind of work with all these investors, and we have made some progress. We have built bidirectional integrations with a few partners. I think what we believe is the right way is, instead of trying to duplicate these loan files and sending them to different investors and looking at their specific process, how do we bring them in the platform? We have the whole loan file. We have all the data, the documents, the AUS, the findings, conditions. So the next step is building tools for lenders, like you mentioned. Like, how can we how can we have your setup teams come in and prep the file, and how can we have your underwriters come in? It is still a big work. Once you start supporting lenders, you have to be fully compliant. There are a lot of regulations we have to be careful of, and we are hiring for that team. We are building a compliance team in-house right now over next 3-4 months, but that's coming. And as I said, this vision of an all-in-one system where we put all parties in one place, that's what is very exciting. So I would say by end of next year, that's kind of what, maybe late next year, we should have a way by which we can invite lender participants into the loan file, so they can actually work on that, be it prepping the file, decisioning the file, conditioning the file. Then you truly have this all-in-one system as we dreamed of kind of early on. So
do you think that your system will automatically do more like an indexing? So to go in, the file gets uploaded, it indexes in, runs over to the underwriter, to the investor of their choice, underwriter in, and then back in the conditions. Is that kind of like your vision, or am I off?
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point. So one thing what we have learned is every lender is unique, and every loan is unique. Every loan is a story. So the question then becomes, and that's the reason technology like automation and all that from a self-learning viewpoint has not been very successful, at least in the mortgage world. Like, since you have to kind of touch every file and understand the story behind that loan.
Mm-hmm.
So to your point, yes, that's kind of how we see this, is like, how do you build a system where we respect the uniqueness of that deal, as well as, like you said, certain things are commodity, indexing the file, structuring it, looking at what documents may be needed, or automatically grabbing data from sources where it is available, and then pushing it, like you said, once the broker picks the investor, pushing it to that investor in ARIVE in a format they can take it up and have their processors come and prep it and push it to their underwriters in-house, and So yes, all these discussions and ideas is what we are kind of internally thinking. That's why I said, like, we need to step up on compliance from a lender perspective. We are already supporting non-del today from brokers. Over time this will become, as I mentioned, and all these ideas like you mentioned, like how do we take the file in, what can we automate, where do we need a human touch point, what can we auto classify, how can we read data from documents. So yes, all these things are very much in the works. So
I got a lot of customers that have continually and converted or do both, which is the broker non-del line. And I know you support both. Where do you feel like ARIVE's software is, I would say, helpful in helping that that customer go from a broker wholesale model, but maybe to a non-del model on the conventional loans, and maybe even potentially grow to on the FHA. But in the initial movement, can I operate with both broker and non-delegated back and forth? And how do you support them? Because there's a little bit more work in the side of that non-delegated loan versus a broker.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question, Chris. And as I mentioned, our brokers will tell us exactly what they need. As they grow up and they become more an emerging banker or mini core or non-del. So what is happening is, if you go and talk to them, they say we want more control on pricing. If you look at fundamentally what is different, and then we'll come to technology. Like, I want more control on my fees, on my pricing. I want these docs to go in my name, not my investor name. So, and there are some core tenets, if you will, they are looking for. And then if you go and work with some early adopters, so our non-del platform is about 10 months old, and again, so some of the largest non-dels have joined us because, as I mentioned, the efficiencies and the value proposition of all-in-one system is so huge and so high. They can retire all their point of sale systems, their pricing engines, and manage all the margins in them, and they don't have to submit a form to all the investor if they want 20 basis point as a holdback. It gives them one place where they can manage their operations, their processes, their pricing, their fees, their branches, if you will. But you're absolutely right. As brokers step up to non-dels, the use cases change. How loan estimates go out, how disclosures go out. So we put a lot of time last year stepping up. The underwriting still happens with investor, but then you're responsible for the loan. If you don't do a good job, and that's why I mentioned compliance. If your documents are not up to the mark, the investor may not buy the loan. And imagine then a $500,000 loan sitting on your warehouse line. That's kind of rough. So we have partnered with them. We have been quite successful. Our non-del platform will continue to mature this year. We are putting closing disclosure, closing packages in as we speak in next few months, and then we have a fully functional system for broker non-del to do everything end to end, as we say it, which is very exciting.
Very exciting. One of the big questions I get asked when a broker wants to go to the non-delegated space is, of course, warehouse lending, and we love doing warehouse lending along with our customers, but I think they're asking themselves, okay, what's that FTE? What's that going to cost? What am I going to have to manage? Is this a full-time person? Is this two? And do you see in the future of ARIVE having anything to managing that warehouse lending side of things?
So absolutely. So I think as we go deep into non-del, to your point, it's all about managing risk. When especially for these non-dels, how do I calculate profitability? I'm doing loan on my own. There's an interest I'm paying on that line, and sometimes larger ones will have multiple lines. And how do I use those lines? And where there I have more bandwidth. So yes, so we do see that, at least to an extent, where they can calculate profitability. How much did I make on this loan? The purchase advice came in, and the warehouse line is now replenished. So yes, building those downstream processes, that's kind of a high value item for our non-del customers in coming months. So absolutely, we may not be actually doing something for the warehouse banks themselves, but once the loan is funded, we want to build tools for our customers so they can actually look at profitability on a loan by loan basis, and which lines have how much, and how much interest they have paid to those lines, and those kinds of things. So
I would love it if for our non-delegated customers, as we're talking theory, is that I could upload their post-closing items, and then they would only be working out of one piece, then to come over into ours and then back into ARIVE. And if we could
absolutely.
figure out a link to be able to link in the post-closing issues, well, then they could run the report. They know what they need. They can see how the funding is going to happen, and the wires are being sent, and it's very simple, easy report. That would be awesome.
Oh, absolutely. So we are releasing some tools already, like you said, funding wire calculator. So, because you are writing the loan and you are funding the loan, if you will, from your line. So what's that funding wire like? That's going to go out in another month. It will take into account your haircut, and, so yes, we are looking into, all these tools. And like you said, once the loan is purchased by investor, there may be some trailing docs that you need. Now, how do I speed it up instead of trying to again export, import? And these concepts have been around for a while, but our industry is plagued with too many systems. There's just manual export, import going on, and that's what we're trying to address. What can we bring into one system so it becomes easy for all parties involved? So
I like that. What about payroll? What about, a lot of my brokers have a lot of employees, loan officers, running the loan officer commission report, pay, commissions and bonuses and all that stuff that always happens in mortgage. What about payroll? Do you see that happening?
Yes. So we would not be a payroll system per se, but yes, to your point, we are going to release around May timeframe capabilities by which brokers, not just non-DELs, they can actually. So once you get a deal, there are things like, what was the lead source? Was the lead source self-sourced? Did I give him the lead, or did I spend on marketing? So capturing fields like the source of lead, and then downstream, how much did I pay the processor? What if there were two processors? What if there was a contract processor? And what if there were cures? And so we are going to be adding fields in the system in very near short term, next 2-3 months, where they can actually calculate for this loan, what was the commission I paid to my loan officer, how much the processor was paid, were there multiple processors, was there an LOA? So yes, those tools are coming. They're absolutely required. Right now people are exporting them using spreadsheets to manage this, which is again, not very intuitive. They have to still do a lot of work manually. So our goal is, the broker check comes in, the broker can just feed in all these data points and then generate, okay, this is what I paid out per deal on every transaction. Absolutely, that's a very high value, high priority item for in next few months.
One of the things that we've been working with a lot of brokers is their P&L, and being able to manage expenses, look at expenses. Just had a conversation with a broker owner this morning, and being able to tighten it up. And one of the things that I feel like every broker owner, non-DEL mortgage company needs to look at is cost to originate converted by basis points. And when an LO looks at that, or an owner looks at that and says, okay, well, this part's, this costs 60 basis points to do all this, and this costs this, it kind of gives a bright eye of how it gets to the end of what their margin is. Do you see a profit and loss type P&L piece ever coming?
So I think as I said, we never say never to anything. We are always listening to community, and if this becomes, I think what the demand was, can you give me a tool at least right now where I can capture all this, and then like you said, generate a report, and I can actually look at, I did like 20 loans this month, and it costed me X on the processing side, Y. So that type of data point, and then how does it convert to basis point would be a next evolution. I made 225, whatever was my lender paid comp, and there were all these expenses, and this is kind of what I really made. To your point, the system will actually gradually go into, and this goes back to there are all these other systems which we go and see you can buy and purchase. This goes back to our earlier point. Once we have all the data correctly captured at high quality, then delivering tools like this becomes possible. So absolutely, I see in near future, having them run profitability reports. How many basis point did I make on a loan basis, on an aggregate? Absolutely. Maybe next year or two, that's kind of where this will evolve. So
Yeah, how cool to be at the end of the month to be able to press send and really be able to know how you did for the month, and you had your advertising, you had all your
Oh yeah,
expenses in there, boom, 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 and there is your P&L. Let's talk. Let's switch gears a little bit. I think that the goal in mortgage is always CRM, and I think there's a lot of brokers out there that say, "Hey, look, I'm creating clients for lifetime," but maybe some of their activity doesn't 100% show that. Um, and I know you're working on CRM, and you've got all that data in there to be able to start it, and it's would be all in one. It's so easy for an originator to be able to get it up, get it created, because I think that's the hard part with CRMs is the development piece of it. Where do you see CRMs and Arrive, and where do you see that in the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we want to be respectful for some companies who have been just doing CRMs for 10, 20, 30 years. So for us to go and make statements we are going to fully replace them is maybe a little overstatement. But what you said is when we talk to our users and say, do you use a CRM? Okay, what do you use it for? It comes out there are only 3 or 4 things they're really using it for. One thing is once the loan comes in and the transaction is in progress, can I notify all parties? Can I notify my agents, the buyer agent, the seller agent, the borrowers, whoever is involved? So can I communicate with them in a seamless manner without clicking a lot of buttons and spending a lot of time? Can the system do it for me?
Yeah.
So in transaction communication is one of the major use case of a CRM system. Can I send reminders to my borrowers? I asked them for documents, they never uploaded one, or I asked them to fill an app and they have not done this. So these capabilities already exist. Again, the maturity of CRM systems and brokers adoption is very different. The joke is the best CRM is the one you use. That's kind of how we see
That
this.
is
So
true.
yes. So I think what is your maturity level? If you need a system that can send text messages and emails, all that as a part of transaction, that is Arrive. You don't have to buy something else. But if you are more sophisticated, you have these nurture campaigns with a lot of content, and you have big database, or you are buying online leads and you're trying to nurture them, and you have a in-house team that is going to take phone calls as these calls come in. Then at this point we are not there yet. We would be building simple nurture capabilities. We already tell our brokers, you have these birthdays coming up, because we have the data, like you said, right? So we have the data. We know which loans are going to drop off EPO because we have the EPO policy by investors, which we know which loans, MI will drop off. So we can alert our brokers, you know what, you did loan for John Doe, his LTV is strong, 78%, MI is dropping off. You may want to reach him again. So what we are doing today is sending these alerts to our brokers. What is missing is automatically pushing these out to end consumers. And as I said, technologically, this is doable, but we want to kind of first look at this a little bit more holistic, because once you start sending, emails to borrowers, there are all these regulations, spam acts and can spam acts that we have to be very cautious about. So at least our current focus is from a CRM perspective. Can we give brokers simple lead management? They can manage their prospects. We can give them alerts, and we can inform all parties in which are a part of transaction. And then we have also opened up our system using API. So if a broker has invested heavily in a third-party CRM system, we want to be mindful and respectful of that. So we
Right.
want them to connect those systems with Arrive. That way, the information flows back and forth. But over time, like you said, we will be building more capabilities. They can nurture their leads. They can send automatic emails. They can send text. As the platform grows over in next year, 2 years, 3 years, more customer relationship management will become part of native Arrive capabilities. So.
Wow. I like it that you're going to give everybody the choice, right? I mean, they can API in, they can use whatever they got, or maybe you could build some tools and keep it simple. I think when you keep it simple, us LOs will use it. When it gets too complicated, we're like throw our hands up in the air and we don't use it. It was a good idea, it was a good thought, but we don't do it. What else, or what do you really see in the future of where Arrive is going to go? I mean, if you look out 5, 6, 7 years from now, where's Arrive?
Yeah, no, I mentioned 100%. Remember that, so definitely we'll get there. But I'll take a little I was thinking about this last night, because I was anticipating this question come up. Okay, where are we going next 5, 6 years? And I think you came to my show a few weeks ago, and you came up with this term LP Mama. Remember that?
Oh,
You
yeah.
said. So I was thinking, can I coin one term, looking 5, 6 years, which can stay with all of us, with all our listeners here. So I came up with this term 5, 6 year into this future. Where is origination? Where is ARIVE? Where is technology? So it's just like LP Mama. My term is called, CX idea. C as in Charlie, X as in experience. Idea is an idea. So, and maybe we'll spend a few minutes looking at my interpretation 5, 6, 10 years from now, where these platforms will be. The CX stands for customer experience. It should be a no-brainer. And as we have talked about, customer experience is paramount for us as a software company. Is brokers, lenders, other partners. How can we give them simple tools which they can use with ease? They are excited. They're
Oop, we lost you.
evolve, products evolve, platform evolves. Applies to brokers. When you are working with borrowers, the experience they have with you is kind of fundamental, right? So you're trying to give an exciting experience. You can get that next referral, keep the process simple, make it transparent. So the same way we look at technology, so customer experience is going to remain fundamental, and companies who can deliver better customer experience will win, in my opinion, in next 5, 6, 10 years. And companies who complicate technology stack too much, like you said, people give up. They get, oh my god, this is too much for me to digest. So that's one. I see investments in customer experience, mobile, iPads, other devices, Apple Watch. How can I do these things on simple that would be paramount, where the user is. So that's CX. If I look at idea, so the first part is ID, which is intelligent decisioning. This goes back to technology has become more and more smarter. Last 5, 6, 10 years, we have cloud computing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, compute, memory. All these technologies have become commodities. You can buy a very intense computing device at a fraction of a cost today than it was maybe 10, 15 years ago. So making decisions intelligent, it could be, I'm scanning these documents, I'm classifying these documents, I'm indexing these documents, I'm helping my LO make pre-approval decisions automatically, I'm helping my underwriter give insights, visibility on the file, any edge cases, corner cases. So I see across the value chain, decisioning will become more and more intelligent. As I said, in mortgages, all you're doing is credit qualification, and you're trying to underwrite the borrower, and you're trying to underwrite the property, and it happens at several stages. When the loan officer gets an app, he's trying to do qualification. Will this qualify? Will this not qualify? Where do I send this loan? The loan goes to an investor, same cycle repeats. Will I be able to do it? What documents do I need? What conditions I need? A file closes, it goes to an investor, same cycle repeats. The whole QC process repeats. So building intelligent decisions across the value chain, I see there'll be more and more investment. And we have, as I mentioned, technologies today that can augment this. I do believe humans will remain central focus of origination. Technology will never replace humans, and that's kind of what we are excited about, because, as I mentioned, every loan is a unique story. So you cannot, at least at scale, build technology that can process 6-7 million stories in a compliant manner. But yes, we will be able to give more inferences, guidance, any red flags, any corner cases. That's for sure where technology will evolve. And my last EA stands for enhanced automation. So what we will see is, with intelligent decisioning will come enhanced automation. And one example I like is what Tesla did to the car industry. They came up with this idea of a self-driving car, that the car will drive itself, and you can still be on the steering wheel, and but eventually, by looking at ambience and surroundings and using machine vision, the system is making commodity decisions. So I do believe in mortgage as well, and this goes back to our discussion. Deal comes in, the system is going to look at certain parameters and automatically start workflows and processes and notifications. What's next in this loan? So I do see automation becoming more and more fundamental, more automated, more seamless, and that's where, from an ARIVE perspective, we are investing very heavily. Like we work with so many investors, so many brokers, all of them are unique. So how can we generate these automatic workflows and tasks where the system is guiding the loan officer what's next? System is the process. So that's where we believe, again, we will be investing. I'm sure other technology companies are also going to give it a shot. But I see these fundamental building blocks: superior customer experience, intelligent decisioning, and enhanced automation. This is the future of, in my opinion, mortgage lending. And I still believe, as I mentioned, I strongly believe, humans will still be the centerpiece of anything we do. Technology will never replace humans in next 5-10 years as well. It will be augmenting all the decisions we make, everything we do in sales and closing and underwriting. But humans will still play the central part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, that's pretty cool how you thought about that. Put that in your own little deal. That's clever. Just a couple questions. We kind of wrap this up. What gets you up in the morning? What gets you excited the most?
Yeah, no, I think, as I mentioned, once in a lifetime, you get these big opportunities where you're completely transforming an industry. As I mentioned, I don't believe there's any other company like ARIVE who will have that big an impact. So that's definitely one thing. If I go to sleep, if I get up in the morning, the impact we are having on this industry is just mind-boggling. As I mentioned, the number of customers who have joined us, they trust us with their business. 2,500 companies brokers are using ARIVE to process loans every day. That's very exciting, the adoption and the reach of our technology. And then the team that we have built in over last, as I mentioned, 12-18 months. I've been fortunate to hire some really amazing team members. We have a very unique hiring process. It's not easy to join our company. We really take it to the next level. But I'm very excited about the team we have put together, because the execution is done by the team. You can have all these grand ideas and big ideas. If you don't have the people, be it product, be it sales, be it engineering, be it design, be it quality assurance, so yes, I think we have an absolutely amazing team that really rocks on the customer support side, education. So that's what gets me up in the morning. The opportunity being so big, and a phenomenal team that we have put together that can actually deliver to that opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's a lesson learned. It's hard to go work for Harish. I had not an employee, but a co-worker partner that works for another company had called and had said, "Oh my gosh, the tests that I have to take to work for Harish." And I go, "What? Is he just doing a disc test? What? No, it's not just tests." And I feel like I'm back in college and had test anxiety and all these things. And I was like, hats off to you. I think you've done an amazing job of hiring. What you've done with your company is a success story in itself. And then to watch you in the weeds, right? You're at the shows, you're with us, you're listening, you're wanting to grow, you're humble and hearing everybody's opinion, and you go back and you figure out a way to implement it. And I think that's what makes ARIVE so special is that you take an idea and then you go figure out, how do I make it better? How do I make it work? And then how do I make it simple? Because I think you've understood how us mortgage people think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As you rightly said, I'm fortunate again. I'm in the right spot at the right time. This industry is ripe for disruption, as we say it. There are incumbents, but they have so much bulk, as we say. For them to move at that speed, it's going to be a tough one. We are fortunate, Chris. Again, we want to thank you for your partnership, all your support over the years. We are very excited to have partners like yourself, and I want to appreciate everything you have done for us. So thank you.
You bet. Hey guys, thanks for joining Coaching with Chris. If you've got a subject or something that you want us to cover, we want to do it. Also, if you haven't signed up for Cracking the Code, the boot camp coming up in May, maybe you have said, I have not even been to South Dakota. This is the time to come. I know Harish is going to be there. He's a big part of this. We're going to be bringing in amazing speakers. you're going to come away with tips, tricks, and things that you can implement, just like how Harish does, is he implements ideas right away. You're going to be able to implement things to be able to increase your origination. So thanks again, Harish. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
And we'll see you next time.
Yep. Bye.